Just sit and don't say anything, okay? He said it fast, without turning around, without slowing his pace. The elevator was already moving up. His fingers tapped on his phone. She walked beside him, in heels that pinched and with a clutch that held no passport, no money. She hadn't said who she was. And he hadn't asked. Just 30 minutes earlier, she'd been sitting quietly in the corner of a small office cafe. Outside, traffic, chaos. In front of her, a cheap cup of tea and a newspaper smudged with blurry classifieds. She was looking for work. Again. Law degree with honors. No connections. Interviews, vague promises, we'll call you. Back to temp agencies, back to part-time gigs. Back in the waitress uniform. Marcus walked in fast. Alone. With a briefcase. One sharp glance around the room. He ordered coffee. While he waited, he scanned the cafe. Sarah didn't look at him, but she felt his attention. He noticed her. He walked up like it was the obvious thing to do. Emergency situation. I need a girl for the evening. As a date. As my fiancée. The dress is ready. Everything's arranged. Your job is just to be there. No drama. The pay is whatever you consider fair. Are you in? She looked up. He was staring directly at her. Confident. No smile. He didn't even ask who she was. He just chose, like picking a suit off a rack. Yes, she answered. Calmly. No explanation, no questions. In the office dressing room, the dress was already laid out. It fit. Thick fabric. Subtle color. Covered shoulders. Heels just barely manageable. In the bag, a thin clutch. She changed without a word. Touched up her makeup herself. Tied her hair into a neat bun. When she looked at herself in the mirror, it was almost like seeing someone else. Tonight, I'm someone's fiancé. Not a lawyer. Not a professional. Just a backdrop. When he saw her, he nodded in approval. Perfect. Let's go. He never introduced himself, but she knew the name. Marcus Johnson. 38 years old. Owner of a major tech group. Sharp, driven, media exposed. Hated excuses. Didn't wait. In the car, he repeated, just stay quiet. I'll do all the talking. Just sit there and smile. We've got a story, but no one cares what it is. She nodded. He took it as agreement. But for her, it meant something else. I know how to be quiet. I just don't know how to be empty. The venue was elegant, understated. Soft lighting. Crystal glasses. Low music. Place cards on every table. Every man had a woman beside him. Marcus walked her in with confidence, as if she truly belonged. This is Sarah. My fiancée, he announced. Eyebrows were raised. She nodded. Sat down. Straight posture. Steady eyes. Not a word. Just an image. The conversation started immediately. Topics, numbers, charts, control shares, project capital. Sarah stayed silent, but she understood everything. She analyzed. The partner across the table, silver-haired, smooth voice, his words felt too polished. Too soft. Too rehearsed. But she didn't interrupt. Not yet. Marcus looked pleased with himself. Tossed out quick comments. Cracked dry jokes. Poured wine. A few times, he turned to her with a half smirk and whispered, "Brilliant. That's exactly how you act." Not a single unnecessary word. She nodded again. But in her chest, something was building. Not anger. Not offense. But knowledge. You want me to be scenery. And if I say even one word, everything could change. But for now, silence. For now, it's a role. Marcus was in his element. Gone was the rush from earlier. At the table, he was precise, composed, in control. He knew when to pause, who to look at, when to lean back as if commanding the whole room. Now and then, he placed a hand on Sarah's wrist, as if to show intimacy. She didn't pull away, but she didn't play along either. She just sat. And listened. The room buzzed with low chatter, the clink of glassware, and a thin layer of tension above all the polished words. Topics shifted. Assets. International partnerships. Tech access. Ownership stakes in the new structure. Sarah tracked everything. She saw how the power lines were drawn. Who was being polite, who was following orders. She didn't know every detail of the project, but she understood enough to sense the risk. The silver-haired man across from them, calm voice, long pauses, was setting the tempo. And that alone raised a red flag. He wasn't pushing. He was guiding. With the distribution and previously agreed conditions in mind, his voice was like music, but Sarah recognized some of the notes. Too well. She'd studied this topic once. Corporate law in practice. Module, indirect transfer of control via simplified restructuring. The professor had said back then, the loudest downfalls usually begin with people who are too sure of themselves. She remembered that. And now, she felt it. Marcus was in his element. He knew he looked polished, that his fiancée was silent and playing her role perfectly, that the wine was the right temperature, and that the deal was heading toward the finish line. He leaned toward Sarah and whispered, "Everything's going exactly as it should." Outwardly, she remained calm. But inside, it was different. You want silence because you're afraid of hearing something that won't fit your picture. But a perfect picture doesn't guarantee anything. Sometimes, words save everything. Then the papers were placed on the table. Final draft of the agreement. The atmosphere shifted. Subtly. But the tension was real. The soft-spoken partner leaned forward. "It's all here. We just need signatures." Marcus took the pen. Confident. Certain. The kind of man who doesn't doubt. Sarah leaned in slightly. Her eyes scanned the lines. There it was. A new clause. Legally worded, but a clear shift in terminology. If he signed, he'd be giving up a portion of management rights, with no path for appeal. They were offering him a seat at the table, yes. But inside, it was a power shuffle. The initiative would no longer be his. Like chess. And your queen's already surrounded, but you don't see it. Her heartbeat raced. But her hands were steady. Her eyes locked on the key detail. Appendix B. A tiny footnote, but that's where it all hinged. She could stay silent. He'd paid her. She was his fiancée, after all. But if she left without saying anything, he'd lose everything. And so would she. Sarah leaned in slightly and said quietly, "There's a major misrepresentation here. If you sign, you could lose the company. I can explain." Marcus froze. The pen hung in the air. He turned to her, eyes filled not with anger, but with surprise. "How do you know that?" Sarah met his gaze. Calm. For the first time that evening, fully present. "Seriously?" His voice was lower than usual. Tight with tension. He didn't raise it. But he stopped moving. The contract lay in front of him. The pen still in his hand, but his eyes were only on her. Sarah spoke steadily. Clause 3.2 allows the counterparty to shift authority, even with only partial loss of shares. And Appendix B links to a law that was amended 6 months ago. The boundaries of responsibility are different now. You'd be taking on more than you think. Marcus didn't respond. The table went still. A pause. Heavy. Someone sipped their wine. Someone stiffened. The silence lasted seconds, but felt like minutes. Then one of the partners, balding, heavy eyes, smirked. Marcus, you didn't just bring a stunning date, you brought a legal advisor. He sipped. What is it now? Fiancés read our contracts. I need one like that in my office. She'd replace my whole team. Laughter floated across the table. Soft. Polished. But laced with poison. Another man, younger, cockier, added, eyes on Sarah, does she even know what she's talking about, or is she just repeating it nicely? Sarah didn't answer. She looked away. You didn't say it for them, she thought. You said it for him. Marcus brushed it off with a smooth, subtle joke, a quiet signal that such mockery wouldn't fly. But his face had changed. Not angry, focused. He set the pen down. Picked up his phone. Sent the draft to his legal counsel. The reply came fast, she's right. It's subtle, but it's a real shift. Marcus leaned back in his chair. It's rare to see a woman, especially one not expected to speak, catch something like that. It was smart. Precise. He looked at Sarah again. Differently this time. No arrogance. No rush. In his gaze, a pause. He was silent now not because he was waiting, but because he was thinking. Then, looking around the table, he said evenly, we'll review this. We're not signing tonight. The mood shifted. Some finished their wine. Some left early. Some exchanged glances. Marcus stayed seated, motionless. Didn't touch the papers again. But something in him had changed. When they stepped into the hallway, he still hadn't spoken. They passed through silence, past security, down an empty corridor. The elevator took forever to arrive. Finally, Marcus turned to her. Who are you, Sarah? A lawyer. With honors. For now, a waitress. But hopefully, not for long. He nodded slowly. I was wrong. Not just about the contract. A pause. You said you were looking for work. Want to try working for me? She didn't answer right away. Just looked at him, calm, steady. Depends on the terms. He gave a small smile. Not smug. Just human. Let's start with coffee. Tomorrow. At my office. They stepped outside. He offered her a ride home. She politely declined. I'll get there myself. Thank you for the evening. And she walked away, steady, composed, not looking back. He stood there, watching her disappear into the night. A little over 3 months passed. The office was quiet. Sarah sat at her desk, reviewing a contract. It was the third project she'd been trusted with entirely. No supervision. No, double-check her work. Marcus had said, you've got this. And if not, I'm here. But she hadn't needed him. Everything went according to plan. It hadn't started with a dramatic offer or some promise of permanence. They met the next day at his office, just as agreed. I have a junior associate position. Project-based for now. Same terms as everyone else. No exceptions. She thought for a moment, then said yes. Because earning your place for what you know is worth more than being chosen for how you look. The office was simpler than she imagined. A mature team. No one questioned her age. No whispers. Just glances, at first as the newcomer, then simply as one of their own. The first week, she spoke less than she listened. Observed. Learned. But during the second week, she suggested a revision to a clause in a partner agreement. They listened. They made the change. After that, they started asking for her input. Then, one day, she was invited to join negotiations. Marcus kept his distance. The kind of distance leaders use when they don't want things misunderstood. He never touched her hand again. Never treated her like a visual prop. He looked at her differently now. Sometimes with a pause. Sometimes with interest. But always, with respect. Every now and then, she caught him watching her. And she knew, he hadn't forgotten that night. Sarah still lived alone. Same apartment. But now she had her own money. No credit cards. No debts. She didn't count every dollar anymore. But she didn't waste them either. Her life wasn't grand, but it was hers. And more importantly, it was headed in the right direction. At night, sometimes she thought back to that dinner. How she sat at a table where no one knew who she was, and how she spoke up, not to impress, but because silence wasn't an option. That was the beginning. One afternoon, as spring approached, she overheard her coworkers discussing a new project. Marcus suggested bringing her in. "She's got a sixth sense for buried language," he'd said. Sarah heard it, but didn't chime in. She just thought, it doesn't matter what they call it. What matters is remembering who you are, even if you're just supposed to be part of the backdrop. As she left work that evening, she saw Marcus in the lobby. He was by the window, finishing a phone call. Then he paused and looked at her. "Coffee?" She nodded. They drank in silence. Then he said, "I didn't treat you well that night." "You acted the way you're used to acting," she replied. "But the world is changing. I'm glad you stayed. And I'm glad you changed." He smiled, quietly, without a word. After coffee, Sarah walked home through the evening streets. Streetlights reflected in puddles. The air smelled like damp stone and early spring. In her mind, a to-do list, unanswered emails, tomorrow's calendar. She didn't feel like a hero. There was no triumph. But inside, a quiet sense of peace. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories. And let us know in the comments what city you're watching from, we'd love to read it.